Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Greater Atlanta Area Virtual College Fair. We're super excited. We have a great panel here for you right now. So before we kick off with the panel, I do want to make sure that you know how to ask our wonderful panelists questions. So you will see this Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to send your questions at any point during the presentation to our panelists. They are super excited to answer them, so make sure that you send those through. I do want to remind everyone that your camera and microphone are off, and they will remain off throughout the whole session. So really that Q&A is the best way to interact with everyone. A quick plug that we do have additional sessions as a part of this virtual college fair still coming up, and the registration is still open for those, so feel free to check those out. And then also we are recording this session, and so if you'd like to return back to any of this information, know that we will have a recording uploaded in the coming days for you to check out as well. But with that, I'll go ahead and pass things off to our wonderful panelists.
Hey everyone, I'm going to quickly pull up a presentation for us to all look at. So give me just one moment. Thanks for being with us. We're really excited, and do send us those questions starting anytime. We will definitely get to as many of them as we can today. So here we go. Welcome to our panel, the College Application Demystified. I'm going to go ahead and jump into introductions and allow everybody to introduce themselves here on the panel. So I'm up first. My name is Kelly Butler. I am the Associate Director of Admission at Oglethorpe University. Currently, I only recruit international students. So those are the only students in my assigned territory. But I'm happy to answer any questions and help you guys out through the process if you're interested in Oglethorpe. And I will go ahead and pass it on to Susan.
Thank you, Kelly. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Susan Bias, and I am a Regional Admissions Officer for the University of Georgia based in Athens. My recruitment territory includes the Georgia counties of Cobb, North Fulton, and Cherokee. So glad y'all are here with us today.
Hello, my name is Travis Culver. I am one of the Associate Deans at Emory. I am housed primarily on the Oxford campus, and I work with all students who are applying from North and North Central Florida. Welcome.
And my name is Alex LeBlanc, and I am the Director of Recruitment at SCAD. I oversee all of the recruitment efforts for the Southeast United States. Really excited you guys could log on with us today.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Antonio Williams. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Morehouse College, and I do cover the Northeast region of the United States. Again, thank you for having me today.
Perfect. So I'm going to kick us off. Everybody else can turn off their video until it is their turn to jump in. So here, the first thing I want to mention to you guys is a little bit of reassurance as well as some information for you as you're starting your college application, which is that we do want to look beyond the numbers. And, you know, I know that for a lot of you all, you're very stressed and thinking about your GPA and your test scores, and those things are really important, obviously. Most of you have worked really hard for them, and hopefully you're proud of them. Others of you may have struggled a little bit, and you're thinking, these numbers do not define me, and that was 100% true, and we know that. Many colleges, and including, you know, most or all of the ones on this panel here, do what's called a holistic review. What that means is we are actually reviewing your entire application, every part of it, not just the academic numbers that you submit. That could be good, or it could be a little bit stressful. I think it's a good thing because that means we're not going to look at numbers and just off the cuff go ahead and say we're dismissing this person 100% because of numbers. But for others of you, it might be stressful because it means knowing that you may have the same numbers as another student, and one of you may be a perfect fit for a university and the other one will not. I think that's a good thing because it's not about there's one perfect university out there for every single person. There's this one great university, and if only we could all get in there. That's not the case, right? It's all about the fit. It's all about the best place for you. And in order to figure out what that is, you have to be honest. You have to show us your real self. We have to learn more about you. You can think of it as a first date, right? If you were to go on a first date and pretend to be a completely different person, and you ended up in a relationship with that person, it might not work out because they actually wouldn't know who you are. So we're looking beyond the numbers. We want to know about your interests, your leadership potential, your goals, your perspective, among other things. But these are all important things that we want to learn more about. And these are things you can tell us about by putting time and effort into your application, right? These are not things we can know just by looking at your numbers. We're trying to see if we're a good match for you and vice versa. So we want you to actually put the time into each component of the application, including the essay, which we'll talk more about, including your activities, which we'll talk more about, your supplemental questions, things like that. So I hope this is a little bit reassuring for you to know that we're not just looking at these simplistic pieces of who you are and thinking that makes up the entire student, because we know that's not the case. So we do want to look beyond the numbers. And to illustrate that, I want to show you kind of a hypothetical situation. So right here we have two different hypothetical students. I made these students up, but this happens all the time. This is a very plausible scenario that can happen. What you'll see here in the center is that these two students have the same GPA and the same SAT score, right? So a lot of students that apply with these same metrics, each school might not have room for all of them. So again, we're looking beyond these things. Take a look at the student here on the left. They say that their intended major is biology and they have future plans to be a doctor. Great. They write their essay about wanting to help people. Hey, I've always wanted to be a doctor because I want to help people, and being a doctor seems like a good way to do that. And they want to attend awesome university, which is, of course, a university that I made up, because it's pretty and the people are nice and I like the campus, right? So this is all stuff that they say in their application. None of that stuff is bad, right? It's not bad to want to help people. It's not bad to want to be a doctor, and it's not bad to want to go to a pretty school where the people are nice. But this doesn't really tell me anything unique about this student. I don't feel like I know this student at all. You could kind of place anybody here and these things may be true about them. So we're gonna look over here at the student on the right, student number 2. Again, their intended major is biology and they also have future plans to be a doctor. So same GPA, same test score, and same plans so far. But their essay is a lot more specific. It's about seeing neurons firing on film for the first time and how they thought it looked like a beautiful electrical storm, and it made them want to pursue neuroscience, a more specific field, right? They tell us that they want to attend awesome university because they have a great pre-medical program. They have a connection to a nearby medical school that the student is interested in. They have specific research opportunities to study neuron activity with one of the professors. They have a pre-medical fraternity. And they have an extensive alumni network, including a famous researcher that graduated from this university. This tells me a couple of things. It tells me that they've researched the university that they're applying to, which is huge. It tells me there are specific pieces of who that university is, what they offer, and what their identity is that connects to this student, which goes to fit, right? It's not just about, I'm a good student, therefore I'm automatically going to be a great addition to your campus. That's not exactly how it works, right? They're showing me, I want to get involved on campus, which is hugely important. They're showing me my goals fit with what you offer at this institution. And here's what I think I want to do in order to be successful here. These are all things that help me see, hey, this is a student that I'm interested in. This is somebody I could see on our campus. And this is somebody that seems like they would fit in well here and bring a lot to the campus community. So these are all things that really help student 2 stand out as opposed to student 1. So again, these are hypothetical. I just want to illustrate a point of, you can have the same numbers, but one student really be a lot more appealing because of the time they put in doing their research and displaying that in their application. So with that, I'm going to move on and I will let our next presenter take over.
Hello. And so I want to talk a little bit more about telling your story and really leaning into who you are. And this is a start for how you will begin to distinguish yourself in our applicant pools. And I'll share kind of broadly, most of the students who are applying to our schools are qualified academically to be there, but it's the details that begin to distinguish them and help us as admission officers to make those decisions. So I'll be piggybacking a lot of what Kelly already mentioned, but I think you should think of your application process as an opportunity for you to reflect and get to know who you are. Your application is your story. So asking yourself, even before you begin, who am I? What is it that I like? What goals do I have? How does College X help me achieve them? So these are things to start to mull over and begin to wrestle with before you even begin to write those essays, before you begin to complete the applications. So I won't talk about all of the points under the bullets, but I will say authenticity counts. So be yourself. I know that this seems to go without saying, to be honest, um, but embellishment can be common. And so we want you to really authentically present who you are. There's no need for you to heighten that, because if what you've achieved isn't good enough for X college, then that might not be the right fit for you. There is no silver bullet, and I think Kelly already mentioned this. If it were, we would tell you as an admission office or committee that if you did 1, 2, 3, and there are schools like that, you would be accepted. But for all of us, there is no silver bullet. So we want you to authentically be yourself. And I think the next thing that is most important here under authenticity counts is preserving your voice. I think this will come across in many ways in your application. Your essay is one of those, and your supplemental essays are some of those ways. But I always tell students, it is fantastic, and I know we'll talk about this later, it's fantastic to have someone read your essay, but you can go too far in terms of having too many editors. So if you think about it, if English teacher reads your essay, mom reads your essay, dad reads your essay, a grandparent reads your essay, the opportunity for them to strip back a little bit of what you're saying or who you are to make sure that they're adding that polish becomes heightened as you add more editors. So do preserve your voice. We want you to be you. We want that to come across in your essay. The next thing under share your passions that I really want to highlight, and actually I can't take a poll here, but I'll ask you to think about this mentally. So how many of you all have been a part of student council or athletics or participated in service? Those things don't necessarily come uniquely to you, but what is unique about them is your role that you've played in your high school. So, share, in greater detail, kind of how Kelly was saying earlier, that maybe you're part of student council and you help to raise funds for X, or maybe you're part of a service organization that did these types of things. And that is what makes an activity unique to you and not just something that anybody can put on that they've been involved in Boys and Girls Club or student council or whatever it might be. List your activities in the order of importance. This is a big one for me. I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I think I get to the activities page and I will see that a student who's been in student council is student body president. It's all the way down at the bottom of the list of things that a student has been involved with. And I'm surprised to see that it's not something that's at the top. And I think a lot of times students put the things that we want to hear or they think we want to hear at the top of their activities list and list the things that they think, oh, don't matter as much at the bottom. So think about what's important to you in that reflecting time and do list your activities in the order of importance or significance for you. And then one of the last points I'll make about this is don't be afraid to brag. So pretend that you are mom, dad, best friend, someone close that can talk about all of your accomplishments. I'm an old guy, and at this point, if I ask my mom to get into the Zoom meeting and brag about me, she could do it for an hour or more. And so pretend that you are that person and really do highlight and celebrate your accomplishments. And lastly, show us, don't tell us. We really want to understand what it is that you've done and what it is that you've been involved in. So that is my time. I'll pass it off to Susan for the next section.
Thank you, Travis. I think it's going to be interesting. There is some repeating here that's going to happen, but I think that is good because I think it shows that, yeah, all the application parts do have some continuity. So I'm here to talk about key essays, great essays, and essays are just one piece of your application. So it's not the end all be all. We truly read them. They help inform us of your character and your accomplishments and your personality and your struggles. And your essay can turn a good application really into a great one. So we're going to share a couple of nuggets about writing essays. And the first one is to fill in the gaps. Your essay should express anything that you haven't already mentioned in your application. It shouldn't be a regurgitation of your resume. So don't miss out on an opportunity to share about a quality or a personality or an experience that would be helpful for us to get to know you by just regurgitating your resume. Next, think about, let's grab coffee. What if we were to sit down, any of us, you sat down with any of the 5 of us and said, let's spend 20 minutes together, right? So we can't, at least in my university, we don't have an interview process. So your essays are your interview. So I want to think about what would you tell me if we sat down together and talked? Would it be something interesting, outside the box? Don't write what you think we want to hear, right? If we were engaged in a conversation, my hope would be that you would connect, we would connect, and you would share an impact of an event, something special that had happened in your life that led you to be who you are and what you aspire to be, and not just give me the play-by-play moment in time as it unfolded. Next, take your time to write your essays. We certainly take the time to read them. So I find that writing the essay is the hardest part of the application. I mean, you know your address, you know your grades, you know what you're involved with. So take some time to reflect. I don't think we often see ourselves as others see us. And so use letters that your grandparents wrote you. Look at your yearbook and see what your teacher or a friend commented. Ask a friend to, a trusted friend to say, what qualities do you value in me? What are some things that make me a good friend or that you are proud of me for? And write these out, put them on a sticky note and put them around your mirror or put them on a poster board and use this to really begin to craft and think about what qualities you want to share in your essays. Start drafting those ideas early. I just think you can never really start too early on that process. So write a little bit, write a draft, and then step away and come back a few days later with a fresh set of eyes. I think that we can get bogged down on that blank screen, or we start writing and it just go down a rabbit hole. And so take some time, step back, and come back to it. Do know that grammar and spelling matter, right? So I'm not the grammar police. I'm not going to sit there and look for a split infinitive with a red pen and say, oh my gosh, the student is out. It's your first impression. So we're looking for your writing ability, we're looking for your creativity, we're looking for your ability to express yourself, and we're also looking to learn more about you. So use that as an option. Just like Travis said, I would say we need you to show rather than tell. Use anecdotes, use examples, be descriptive, right? These all show, tell your story, right, rather than showing. And then proofread. He mentioned not having too many people proofread, but I think it is important to have somebody that you trust to read your essay out loud. And is what you're stating, what you're sharing, what you really mean. Because sometimes we write things and then we're like, that's not really what I'm meant to write. That's not really what I want to say. So I would also say if somebody who knows your senior class, if they read this essay, would they know it was you? Or could it be anybody that's a senior at your high school? Don't use a thesaurus. We're not looking for gigantic words. It, again, needs to be your voice and you sharing about yourself. Some strong tips for essays, I would say be creative. Capture my interest with a strong statement right from the beginning. And I will read it. I will read all of it, but it certainly makes me want to continue reading with that strong statement. Make sure you include yourself. Don't tell this grand story and then we've heard or learned nothing about you. Keep it professional and know your audience. I would, of course, avoid any polarizing topics. You might want to make a statement once you come on campus, but this may not be the time to do that. Answer the question. What was the question that they asked? And most questions on these prompts are very open-ended, and you can address them in a variety of ways, but answer the question. And then finally, if you recycled your essay and you put the institution's name in there, be sure that you change the name of the institution. So thanks for listening. I look forward to having your questions later on the end. I hope this was helpful. And now I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
Thanks, Susan. I feel like this is going to be reviewing a lot of the information that we have already talked about this afternoon, but I'm here to remind you, you should not be cutting corners. You know, you're only going to go through this application process, this application season once, and you want to make it count. Sometimes the admission representatives that you meet at your schools or at fairs or panels like this today are not the people who will be reviewing you for admission or scholarship consideration. So you want to make sure to always represent yourself to the fullest and make sure that we can connect with you as a potential applicant in any kind of situation that you find yourself in. So some helpful reminders for you guys is to take all of the essay questions seriously, both mandatory and optional. You know, there are a lot of supplemental materials and optional fields when it comes to applying to colleges. Take the time to complete all of the optional fields, even if you don't necessarily find it necessary for you. Submit letters of recommendation and any recommended supplemental materials. Again, as Susan and Travis have said before me, we as the admission review committees, we take time to read all of the materials that you send to us. We want to get to know you guys and we want to see you as candidates for admission who will enhance our campus communities. So if you're not bragging about us, if we're not hearing from your counselors, if we're not hearing about these awesome internships that you did over the summer, we won't get to know you to the fullest extent, but we also won't be able to advocate for you. So the more we get to know you, the more we can break down those barriers and we hear from you, the better off you'll be. Answer all questions fully, and if they ask something, send it. So many times I have students who come back and they're like, I need more scholarship money. And I'm like, well, I asked for a resume 2 months ago. And they're like, oh, yeah, you know, that was optional, so I didn't submit it. If we are asking for something from you, definitely take the time to submit it. It may make the difference of getting accepted into a university. It could also play a huge role in your scholarship dollars that you receive from an institution. So chances are, if we're asking for it, it's probably needed and highly, highly encouraged, even if it is a supplemental material. And then, yeah, the last piece of advice is definitely not to make assumptions. Discuss with any and all questions with admission staff. So not all schools are the same. We do not all work in the same way. We all have very specific requests and requirements when it comes to our admission process. So do not make the mistake of thinking if it's accurate for one school, it's going to apply to every single school that you are applying to. You know, even within this panel specifically today, we are all very different institutions. We have a lot of similarities and we may have a lot of overlap in some of the material that we request and require, but we are all very, very different. So definitely do not assume. Don't assume that something got there just because it said delivered on the FedEx package or through the email. Call and check in. You know, make sure to not make assumptions and don't wait until the last minute. So don't cut corners. Make sure to submit all of your supplemental materials. Even if it's not required, definitely send it in. We want to get to know you and yeah, brag about yourself. As Travis said, the best thing that you can do right now is advocate for yourself and brag about yourself. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Antonio to talk about some of the myths and misconceptions within higher ed.
Hi, so again, I am Antonio Williams. I'm going to be talking about myths and misconceptions of college admissions. The first, stating all universities have quotas. Not all universities do have quotas. That's not absolutely true. I can only speak to my college. We give everyone an equal opportunity in regards to our admissions process. If you meet our requirements, then you have an opportunity to, become a student at Morehouse. The next bullet point is saying legacy applicants have a big advantage. We do look at legacy at Morehouse College. However, a student being legacy does not mean that they have an upper leg over another student. There have been many times that I have looked at applications and they have stated they are legacy, meaning their father, grandfather, cousin, or brother attended Morehouse, and they have not gotten in because they did not meet either, GPA requirement or a test requirement, or their overall application just wasn't up to par of what it is that we are looking for. A legacy, pretty much when we're looking at it, just pretty much lets us know that, okay, this student has, a knowledge of Morehouse College. They know what it is that we expect out of them, but it does not necessarily guarantee admission at all. The next point, the topic of my essay must be sad or traumatic. I honestly want to just echo what my counterparts have said, like Alex and Travis. They stated that you should be authentic and real in your essay. Sometimes a sad or traumatic essay may be a part of your story, but don't make that your only focal point. This is a different time, so it is very important that in your essay you are advocating for yourself. You are talking about your strong points, talking about your involvement, whether it be in your community, outside of your community. We really want to get to know you and what it is that you can bring. I know that Morehouse, we love to have young men who are leaders or have leadership potential. So your essay, again, is truly up to you and what you feel is best for you. However, we like to see what a young man is bringing to the table and what it is they've done over the course of their high school career that they can possibly bring to our institution. The final bullet point, you must be involved in everything to be a good applicant. Again, that's not true either. Oftentimes, I see two types of applications. I see an applicant who is involved in like 6 or 7 activities, but they've only been involved in them for 1 year at a time. Then you have the other applicant who may be involved in 3 or 4 activities. However, they are involved in them either all 3 or all 4 years of their high school career. Honestly, we prefer the latter, simply because it shows that the student has dedication and consistency to what it is that they want to do. The student who has a lot of different activities listed on their application, it doesn't show any type of consistency. It doesn't show that they have dedication to one thing. It just shows that they are what we refer to as an applicant filler. So honestly and truthfully, a lot of activities being shown in your application, and there is no extended amount of time while you're doing it, can actually hurt you more so than help you. So I hope that me talking about some of these myths and misconceptions have helped you guys out a great deal. And I would like to throw it to my next counterpart.
Okay, so that wraps up the main points that we wanted to discuss. I'm going to put our contact information up for just a couple minutes. You guys can write it down or take a screenshot if you're interested in getting in touch with any of us or our offices. So we'll leave that up for just a moment, but we definitely want to jump into some Q&A. You guys have been sending some awesome questions, and we will try to answer as many as we can get to. All right, so a lot of questions about letters of recommendation as well as essays. Several of the questions focus on, does my essay need to be about what I want to major in? Will it hurt me if it's not about what I want to major in? And that could be because of the example that I gave in my section. I will just say for us, specifically at Oglethorpe, students don't apply to specific majors. They just apply to the university and they can major in whatever they want. It does not matter to us if you write about what you want to major in at all. You certainly can, but it would not be negatively impacting you if you chose to write about something else. You definitely can write about a lot of different things, but I'll let other folks give their perspective too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So, if you're applying to Emory and you're using the Common App or the Coalition app or the QuestBridge application, there are prompts and there's also a free write. So please feel free to use any of those topics topic of your own to share a little bit more about who you are.
So at UGA, we don't admit by major. We ask it on the application for two reasons. One is that sometimes students' extracurricular activities really do mirror what they want to major in. And I find that for vet med students mostly. They love animals, they volunteered, and that's great. But no, not at all. I mean, you don't have to. With us, we have 200 plus majors, minors, and programs of study. So you may not even know something exists that you end up studying. So, share about you, not worry about that major topic.
Yeah, we kind of expect you guys to change your major anyway, so most of us do not hold you to that. So really anything that you want to talk about that it displays more about yourself is great. Somebody asked, what topics do we avoid in the essay? I didn't hear that part. So I know, Susan, you mentioned a couple things that may be good to not make the topic of your essay, but others can weigh in as well if they have any things they think are good to potentially avoid.
Sure, I am certainly not the expert on this, but I would just say I said polarizing topics. And, first things come to mind with me would be politics and religion. And that's just, maybe unless you're interested in political science, but you don't know who your reader is, right? So you don't know how that person feels about a particular, and you don't want to, make assumptions or insult anyone or take yourself down a certain rabbit hole, and that's not really who you're trying to be confrontational. So those are just my two thoughts there. Know your audience, know your reader. But others, please jump in.
I have a lot of feelings about this. Not that there are a lot of topics that you should avoid, but 100% with Susan, know your audience. You'd be surprised at how deaf or not attuned some students can be. But then also, I think, is your essay necessarily the place for the most traumatic thing that happened to you or is happening to you? Not necessarily. That may be, or the thing, especially with COVID, that might be a snapshot of a time in your life, but isn't defining of who you are. It may have helped to shape you, but it isn't defining. So I think ask yourself, is the information that is in my essay, can it be found someplace else? And are there people like my counselor who may be better suited to tell part of that story for me? So I don't think anything is off limits, but I do think that you have to think about, is this a defining moment? And is it what I want to define me?
I think also, and when we mention again, like the fact about your essay being sad or talking about a trauma or adversity that you've gone through, again, those things aren't off limits. I have heard students almost wish that more bad things had happened to them because they think that's what they're supposed to write about. And please don't think that. We do not want for you to have had bad things to talk about for an essay, right? That's not what we're specifically looking for. You absolutely can talk about those things, and there's ways to do that really well. What I would caution you against is you don't want the person who's read your essay to finish that by being worried about you. So, if it's something you've gone through in your life and you want to talk about how it was meaningful for you, how you've grown, different things like that, that is 100% fine. And I would even say for a lot of places, it's not off limits to talk about even mental health things you've been through. We don't judge you at Oglethorpe, for example. We're not going to not admit you because of something like that, of course. But you don't want the person finishing to say, I'm not sure they're in an okay place. I'm not sure if they are, ready for college right now because of all these things that they just disclosed to me. Doesn't say anything about you as a person. It just may not be the appropriate venue to talk about that stuff. So that's why it's a good idea to have other people read it, because they may be able to give you a little bit of perspective about how that's coming off in your essay. Great question here. How can you show potential for leadership if you haven't really had opportunities to take leadership positions in your extracurriculars? Anyone can answer. I have thoughts, but I'll let you guys go. Never mind, I will. All right, so, extracurricular activities aren't the only place that you can show leadership. A lot of folks are leaders in different ways, right? They may be leaders in their church group, or they may be leaders, not officially on a team, but they may have, experience rallying their team members. They may be leaders in their friend group because of, qualities that they have. So those could be things that you could talk about in your essay. Again, showing, not telling, not saying I am a leader, but telling us a story about how you led others. For others of you, you may not be leaders. That's okay. We're not only looking for extroverted leaders who are going to be the captain of everything. There's lots of ways to be additive to the community. So if, for example, there was a question in here about what do I do if I'm more introverted? I love introverts, right? That doesn't mean you're not a leader, but maybe you are have other qualities that don't translate to being extroverted and the ones that always speak up and things like that. But you're really creative, or you're really passionate, or you are a fantastic listener. These are skills that we want too. So these are also things that you can show, not tell us in your essay by telling stories about who you are. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
As an admission counselor, I can always talk. So
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm trying to find the mute button. Go ahead.
no, I'll just say, everything Kelly said is 100% true. But finding leadership is not hard for us. I think that sometimes people do think that it has to be a title kind of role position. It may be that your chemistry teacher or biology teacher talks about the role that you take in your lab group, how you're able to pull everyone together. That is leadership. If you have siblings and or elderly grandparent that you have to help care for at home, that is a leadership role. And so it's not just the traditional, title kind of positions or leadership hat that you put on that defines you as a leader.
I was going to echo Travis that, it doesn't have to be a club or organization. Don't discount things that you do at home. Leadership also means maturity and integrity, and don't discount work. Someone has hired you to represent their company, to be that person on the drive-through, or to be that person that answers the phone. And so these are different forms of leadership. And while you may not have that title, it does speak to your responsibility, taking initiative, and a level of involvement, just in a different way.
All right, couple of really timely questions about test scores being optional, which is a big change this year for a lot of universities. This question and some other folks asked the same one. Although the submission of SAT scores is now optional, will the sending of good scores give a higher chance than those who do not send a score? And somebody else asked kind of the opposite. If I don't like my score, since it's optional and we just told you to submit everything optional, should I still send it? I'll just answer for Oglethorpe, and this kind of contradicts what we already said. What I would recommend, we're test optional right now. I would recommend checking on the school's website or our website to see what our middle 50% or what the average test score is. And if you're kind of in there or above there, great, send those scores. That's awesome. If you're below there, if you're not quite where they want you to be, it's probably not going to be additive to your application to send those. So it might be good to take advantage of the fact that they are optional. So that would be my 2 cents. If you're, especially if you're applying to Oglethorpe, I can only speak for us. If you're in our middle 50% of average test scores or higher, which is on our website, feel free to submit. If you're lower, I would say it would probably benefit you not to, because then we will not use those in either your application decision or your scholarship decision. So that is my opinion, but I will let others answer if they have differing opinions.
Okay, I'll jump in, sorry. So UJ is truly test optional. And I think what's important to know is if you answer on the application, I do not want my scores used in the review process, they're hidden. I don't see them, you don't see them, they're not part of the process, right? I do think that, gosh, now I've forgotten part of the question. If it's optional, yeah, it's just, oh, I know what I'm saying. Even before test optional happened, the University of Georgia has always valued 4 years of high school or demonstrated academic achievement more than 4 hours on a Saturday on a standardized test. So even if you choose to submit your standardized test scores, they're still not going to be the majority of the application review. They're just still a small part. So I think that's important to note. We're more interested in your grades and your rigor of study than we are those standardized test scores. And Kelly makes a very good point for middle 50s. And for any college that you're looking at, I think you take those middle 50s and you say, let me look at my academic profile and how it compares to that institution's profile. And then where do I then define the colleges that I'm applying to? What's going to be my reach school? What's going to be my target school? What's going to be my fallback school? And I'd be happy to attend any of these, but it helps you balance your expectations and a little bit more understanding about the applicant pool is really what drives all of our decisions and what makes it competitive. So, and that varies from year to year too for most of us. And so you just have to understand what your role is and what you can control, right? And then express yourself, answer the applications, do all that great stuff. And if you feel solid about your test scores, if they're a strong representation of your academic ability, then feel good about it. If you weren't able to take one, or you don't like them, you don't feel like it's, you know, you got one, it was a practice one, then don't worry about it. Sorry, that was too long.
And I'll just echo, at Emory, optional really does mean optional.
Something you can do is ask if a school is test optional or test blind. So we're test optional, but we're not test blind. If you send us your scores, you say, here are these scores, and then you say, but I don't want you to use them. We've already seen them now. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad's gonna happen, but it may put you in a different scholarship bracket or something like that. So if you don't want a school to use your scores, maybe don't send them, or ask them, hey, are you test blind? Because test blind is what Susan was saying, meaning they're hidden, I don't see them, versus test optional, which means once I get them, I've seen them and I can't pretend that I didn't. So that could be a question to ask the school. We're almost out of time. I will just grab one more because it is a quick one. I think it's really important. Do you let the admission officer know if you're applying for a scholarship, or do you automatically get considered for one? You should ask them, because this is different at every school. School may have a scholarship application that you need to fill out. You may need to be considered for certain scholarships based on interest, or you may be done automatically based on your application. So you don't want to miss out on an opportunity because you don't know. So ask your admission counselor. That is totally what we're here for.
So I wanted to jump in and just say for Morehouse College, there is not a separate scholarship application for us. Once we review your application, and if you fit the scholarship criteria, it is then automatically sent to the scholarship committee.
And Emory does not have additional applications, but we do have a scholarship deadline, which many schools will. Ours is November 1st.
Same for SCAD. As soon as we receive all of your materials, we will automatically review you for scholarship consideration. And then the more you submit in terms of the supplemental materials, the higher your scholarship options are.
At UGA, the application for admissions doubles as a scholarship application, with the exception of the Foundation Fellow, which is our highest, most premier, most competitive applicant scholarship. And you need to apply early action if you want to be considered for that. And the application deadline for the Foundation Fellowship is November the 1st.
We do not, at Oglethorpe, we don't have a separate scholarship application. You're automatically considered based on your application and either the FAFSA, if you can fill out the FAFSA, or if you're not eligible, we have a separate aid form we can have you fill out. So based on immigration status or anything like that. But it is automatic, and we have no scholarship deadline. So no matter when you apply, we will be able to look at your information and qualify you for financial aid. Cool. I don't know if we have time for any more questions. I know we didn't quite get to all of them, but we are going to be able to get these and try to follow up with some folks whose questions we did not answer. But our contact info is still up. So if you want to ask these specifically of us, that is what we're here for. So please feel free to reach out, and we would be happy to have a longer conversation with you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all so much. A big thank you to all of our panelists. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, and I'm sure that our audience does as well. And thank you to all of you for joining us. We really appreciate that. too. So hopefully this piece of the virtual college exploration has been helpful as you are at whatever point of your college search you may be. I do want to note that you will see a quick survey appear on your screen as soon as this session ends. So if you want to take just a quick second to fill that out for us, it's really helpful to get a little bit of feedback on these sessions. With that in mind, also remember that you can sign up for additional sessions. There are quite a few still happening, so feel free to check those out. And once again, this session was recorded, and this recording will be uploaded online and distributed to you within the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that too, in case you need to circle back to that contact information or any of the wisdom that you gained today. So a big thank you once again to our panelists, a big thank you once again to all of you, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.